negligence for over 50 years here in South Florida. If you get injured as a result of somebody else's negligence, it can be a car accident, it can be a slip and fall, medical malpractice, negligent security. If somebody else's negligence caused an injury to either you or one of your loved ones, give us a call. Our phone number is on our page, our website is on our page, and our email addresses are on our page. Please give us a call for a free consultation. We'd love to help you. Let Zach and I protect your rights.
Can I break the news? I can, but I won't, you know?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this trade deadline special edition stream for FOF Live presented by Burger and Hicks. As always, you can check out Burger and Hicks on their Instagram, TikTok. We will have their website down below along with their phone number for you to call them today. And what a stream we have for everyone today. You have seen the news, lots of trades, a lot to talk about. For everyone here, we have myself, Daniel, we have Kevin, we have Eli, we have Nate, we have Zach Letchen joining us once again. A pleasure always having him. And then we'll also have Alex Crutcher, who was on site in Tampa Bay. We will get his press box report and see, maybe, who knows, maybe Alex Crutcher got traded, but we'll never know. We'll see what happens when he calls us on. But wow, what I would say a last couple days it's been for the Marlins in terms of trades, in terms of franchise history. Xavier Edwards getting second cycle in franchise history. I believe we still have to shout that out amid all the trades, everything. I think I'll throw up an X. I'll throw up an X for her right there. We go. You have to shout him out for that. Big congratulations to Xavier Edwards. But let's go ahead and talk about the big news. It is trade deadline. Let's first talk about the one that was made official not too long ago. That is Trevor Rogers, is joined by Lewis. That's how you know this is a big stream. We have Lewis joining us today. But with Trevor Rogers getting traded to the Baltimore Orioles for Kyle Stowers and Connor Norby, two very top prospects for the Baltimore Orioles. Orioles looking for starting rotation pieces. Earlier, they traded for Zach Eflin from the Rays, and now they look on the other side. Marlins, they get Trevor Rogers. Eli, talk to me, talk to everyone about this trade, and maybe who the Marlins are getting in these two position players.
This is the one we focused on with the Spaces session just a few hours ago. For those who were able to tune into that, thank you. I gave some of my thoughts on this one, and it's the first one that is official. At this moment we got 4 reported trades at least, and this is the first one that's crossed the finish line with Trevor Rogers going for Connor Norby, Kyle Stowers. And we saw Connor Norby in person against the Marlins just a few days ago in Miami. I think this is a great trade, and I think most people in our staff are aligned on it with Trevor. I guess he's the ace of the current Marlins rotation, but that is saying very little. His place in their future plans was a little bit clouded, considering what they would look like when everybody came back from injury, and just the honest assessment that he's not the same pitcher he used to be. His biggest asset this year has been his availability. He's made every scheduled start this year, while basically everybody else has missed significant time due to injury. But his stuff is not the same. He doesn't miss bats at a high level anymore. And it was really bad pairing to be in front of a lousy Marlins defense this season as well. Even so, the Orioles apparently saw enough in him. And with the lack of alternatives out there, he goes to them for 2 guys that were just blocked in Baltimore, for a team that is trying to compete for a World Series right now. Both these guys, Norby and Stowers, have had some major league experience over these last couple of years. There's just no room for them to play regularly over there. The Orioles were eventually going to have to make these tough decisions, trading all of their hitting depth for starting pitching. And I think they settled for a guy in Rogers that on a good team, even on the Orioles, he's a really back-end option. He is at best number 4, probably more like a number 5 starter, just given the lack of standout ability and at this stage of his career, at least for this moment with his stuff in its current form. And instead, the Marlins get, especially in Norby, he is the centerpiece here. somebody that I think plugs in immediately as their everyday second baseman down the stretch. And that's what's most exciting, as we'll get to, about this deadline as a whole. How many of these guys are close to contributing to the majors or already ready to hop in immediately? And in a way, that timeline to get back to relevance might not be quite as long as we initially feared when some of these trades began earlier in the year.
Yeah, just incredible just seeing some of this. I want to hear from Kevin. I know Kevin is one of our big prospect guys here on Fish on First. I want to know with Norby and Stowers. I don't believe Stowers is anymore considered a prospect, but has still seen limited playing time, so maybe he's still young, maybe even prospect level. But where do you see these two guys fitting in the system? Where would you have? Are they instantly maybe 1-2 in terms of position players in the system?
Yeah, so it's Stowers. I believe he's already graduated from prospect pedigree. So he's been graduated for actually about 2 years, I want to say. With Norby, I mean, I would have to say he's the top prospect in the organization. Maybe you could still make the case for Noble and Thomas, but it's pretty hard when you have someone like Connor Norby who's been doing so well. And I mean, as Eli said, we'll plug in right away on this major league lineup. Already 16 homers this year with AAA Norfolk. He's 134 WRC plus. 12% walk, a little higher on the strikeouts, hitting almost close to 300, OBP close to the 400s. It's been really, really good season for him. It's a really good trade. And Stowers is another nice player. He should also be plugging in right to the major league lineup. They have a couple spots on that 26-man right now, as well as the 40-man. So they'll have some moves to make and some decisions to with those two guys. I mean, they did very, very well with this Trevor trade. And credit to Trevor. He really stepped up very close to the end of his tenure here with the Marlins. Posted about a 3.3 ERA, I believe I want to say, in June, and close to a 3.6 in July. So he'd been solid. So he now goes to Baltimore, a very pitcher-friendly ballpark. So he's going to be playing behind a very nice defense as well for the most part. So good trade and two very good – one good prospect, one guy who's kind of felt like a quadruple A guy with the Orioles, just given the amount of position players they had, but he now finds probably a home in Miami. And I mean, again, there's more trades to be made, so he could be an everyday guy for them pretty soon.
Okay. Second trade official, as we'll get to shortly, Josh Bell to Arizona.
Yeah. We'll go over that. I want to hear a little bit. I want to hear from Nate, Zach, and Lewis about this Trevor Rogers, because the staple of Trevor Rogers has been former All-Star, battled through injuries and maybe downside in his performance, but this year really picked it up, made every one of his starts, and that really maybe enticed Baltimore to trade him. I want to go to Nate. Seeing Trevor Rogers go, where do you see him fitting now with Baltimore, and how do you think maybe the two new players could come in and for the Marlins? I guess you don't think they'll play ASAP for them this year, at least in the majors.
Yeah, for Trevor, well, the best ability is availability, and Trevor has not missed a start the entire season. He's been, I guess like Eli said, the ace of the Marlins rotation this year, just because he has been able to make every start, and he's been out there. He's kind of had to reinvent himself this season. His fastball velo has continued to trend down, so he's had to rely mostly on his off-speed stuff, and that, that wasn't working too well for him earlier in the season. I touched on the spaces. His defense is lackluster, and that came back to bite him in his first couple starts, but he's slowly and slowly, matured, and he's been a lot better as of late. The past month, he's been really good, honestly, and his off-speed is really learning to, mix his pitches well and not really, rely too much on his fastball like he used to and what he could get away with. For Norby and Stowers, I'm in love with the return. Norby was blocked by guys like Holiday, Henderson. I mean, Baltimore's the best farm system in all of baseball, so he was not really going to see his chance here unless he, potentially got moved to the outfield. So I think he has then he can slide right into second base if the Marlins need him to. He's going to take Arnold Lopez's job, I'd say, pretty quickly. So Norby, I mentioned also in the spaces, he's pretty consistent across the board, 50 hit, 50 power, 50 run, 50 field. So that he's going to be a really steady player. I believe he is the top prospect, the top position player prospect for sure in the Marlins organization. And Stowers graduated prospect eligibility, I believe, halfway through last season. I'd say he's not as safe as Norby, but good power. I believe he's a 65 power on Baseball America. Hit tool is a bit of a question mark. He does have strikeout problems, as does Norby. I believe Norby has not walked one time since being called up to the big leagues this year, and he has struck out quite a bit. But that's growing pains. He's going to come into a team that's 30 games under 500, and he can work those out. So it's not a big deal. So yeah, I like the return. I think Rogers is going to slide probably 4 or 5 in Baltimore. They don't have any lefties as it stands, so probably work out of the bullpen in the playoffs. So I think the Marlins definitely won this trade, but if Rogers keeps improving, Baltimore could definitely reap the benefits as well.
Yeah, I want to hear from Lewis. Are you there?
I'm here.
Talk to us. Talk to us about Trevor, Golden Boy, gone from the Marlins rotation, getting Norby, getting Stowers. Did you like the trade? Peter Bendix cook on this one. What did you think of this overall trade?
I mean, Tampa. I mean, like coming from Tampa, an organization who, in their trade history tends to have a history of kind of getting more bang for their buck. And I think in this case, the way I kind of went into the season with Trevor Rogers, I was just kind of assuming like I don't expect him to be the 2021 Trevor Rogers, and I would just be more kind of encouraged if he were healthy. The idea of him really becoming a trade candidate didn't really cross my mind and about being a thing until really I thought it would have made more sense next year. But given he has the additional control now, and given the state of starting pitching on the trade market with the Tigers' reluctance to trade Flaherty and Scooble's price tag being somewhat astronomically high, it's kind of just like you kind of have to get what falls out of the burning plane, and just in that case, you kind of just getting innings and Rogers to kind of get you through both, not just the rest of the season, but hoping that they can, in October, rely on their bigger name starters, and Trevor's going to be a gateway. I think, given the state of where the Marlins farm system has been position player wise and how deficient it's been in position player prospects, I mean, I think they did incredible, just given what Norby's done in the minors for Baltimore, and the power potential that Stowers has, It just, those are very encouraging things. I think, as Nate alluded to, I think Stowers is will be the more play discipline. I believe it's 8 walks to 54 strikeouts.
Lewis, can I cut you off real quick? 2 seconds?
Do we have a breaking trade? Yes, we do.
Oh,
Bryan,
baby.
Bryan De La Cruz.
Traded to the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Wow. They were in on Jazz originally.
What do you think the return could possibly be for DLC? Instant reaction. I want to hear Zach. Instant reaction. DLC traded.
Well, I think we were all waiting for the moment that it was going to happen. So it's kind of a rip the Band-Aid off kind of moment. And I think Bendix has done such a great job of being so position player heavy, because that's kind of what the vision always has been when he came in. So I'm really curious to see what that return is for Bryan De La Cruz. I guess we'll wait and see.
Yeah, he's not a free agent until 2028. So they could get a really, really nice return for DLC here. Now we just have to see who it is.
De La Cruz, since being called up like instantly after he got traded from the Astros. I mean, Eli put the post out today. He's been the Marlins leader in so many categories. It's going to be weird to see the Marlins without him now.
Hold on. Let me pull that up.
John Sim, part of the return. I hope I pronounced that.
I want to know how this is going to affect Jesus Sanchez's play.
Yeah, so DLC, the ultimate compiler for the Marlins since coming over. He's by far played the most games, and he was I wouldn't say a fan favorite, but somebody that was
clubhouse.
He really overachieved with this team relative to expectations at the time, coming over for rental Yimi Garcia. And the Pirates were kind of the only team that seemed to be linked to him right now. And we're getting word as of this moment that this news is catching DLC by surprise. He's at Tropicana Field. He's on the field wearing Marlins warm-up gear. And in return, they are getting this prospect that they had previously been linked to, Jun Sak-shim, who is he's this really hard-throwing, projectable pitcher, right-handed pitcher. I think still in the complex league, or he might be. I remember him being injured earlier this season. Let me make sure I just have that right. Yeah, he has not pitched this year. He's been on the IL all year after making just 4 starts in the complex league last year. This is a name that came up during the Edward Cabrera trade rumors earlier this year. And so now the Marlins get their guy. They wanted more. It would have been additional pieces if that Eddie trade went through. So if this is the only piece they're getting, my first reaction is it's kind of underwhelming, but it's also I didn't expect much from DLC in the first place. This is somebody that, due to these other deals they were making, the Marlins were kind of ready to turn the page, projecting DLC to be mainly a DH moving forward. And some of the prospects they just got in these deadline deals are really talented hitters, but also have defensive questions and might end up at DH anyway. So now they're feeling they have internal replacements for him. They cash in on this really exciting young pitching prospect who we've barely seen before, but it's a really interesting lottery ticket they're taking here with Shim.
It does seem like it'll be more than one piece, though, as I believe it was. I don't even know who put that one, but it said part of the deal, so we'll see. I mean, hopefully it's more than one piece. He's not a free agent until 2028, so he's got a long way to go, and I believe he begins pre-arb next season. So we'll see. Could be a really good trade for the Marlins and continue to stock up on the system. They were interested in Jazz and DLC, and they end up getting De La Cruz in this trade.
And just to pop in, yet another trade, officially official, JT Chagua to Seattle for Will Schomburg. We'll probably save that one for the end. That is a little bit trade, but
Lots
one
of
that that's another one that I also approve of. One, sending a guy that had a really minimal role on the team and really is getting a standout performer who's in high A right now and could move pretty quickly as a reliever. So yeah, parts of the return. So that makes me feel better. The assumption is that Shim is the centerpiece right here. Yeah. We will continue to monitor who those other pieces are. We will be staying live a little past the 6 p.m. deadline just to make sure that we have the full details here in terms of what the Marlins did and didn't do.
So do you think that's it? Do you think Bendix is putting away the phones, or do you think there's maybe a couple more trades that he might have up his sleeves?
He's got to keep calling on all these relievers that he has. I mean, they still have Bender out there, Brazoban. Seems like there's a lot of interest. Cronin and Fauché are still on this major league roster. I mean, they have a lot of ways it could still go. And less than an hour, about 40 minutes left to this deadline, or 50 minutes. I mean, he has a long way to go if he really wants to really continue to shake this up. And they could really stack up on this farm system continuously. And at the price that relievers are right now, the Jason Adams trade, they did very well in that for the Rays. They could do something not similar, but something close enough with Fauché and Cronin, and both who've been really, really good this season.
Nardi too. A lot of team control. So I mean, I think he might be the best piece. Honestly, he's been using a lot of high leverage before. So, also, but I
second
think
one is
way too early to give up
second prospect is Garrett Forster. Yeah,
yep, Garrett Forster.
So 2 prospects, not shabby.
He is number 18. So 17 and 18 on pipeline from the. Garrett Forster could play first, third, and catcher. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Well, just hold the phone. Let me see what we got on Baseball America. I hate to use pipeline when I don't have to, but I think both these guys coming in pretty similarly.
They're on Baseball America.
Yeah, Baseball America is even lower on Shim, dropping him to number 28. Coming off the injury that he's had this year and all the question marks around him. But
so where does this leave the outfield for the Marlins with Bryan De La Cruz gone? Nate, where did this leave the outfield situation for the Marlins now?
Well, Forrest Wall, I guess, is going to take over in center, and you got Jesus Sanchez in one of the corner spots, and then from there, I'm really not too sure. I honestly have no idea. I'm drawing a blank right now. If you want to throw whoever you want in that last corner spot,
they're going to have probably a good chance to call up Griffin Kona, and they could call up now from the minor league.
I guess it'll have to be.
I mean, Kyle Stowers could take over as well.
Or you could just, if you still think Stowers has other things he needs to work on, given his inconsistent track record at the big league level. Renato Lopez has cameoed out there a couple of times. You could maybe play a week's worth of games where he's seeing some time in left field. They have options, which is something we haven't really been able to say for a while. So, they're not exactly going to be like scraping together guys to play those positions. I think they can kind of maybe take their chances with who they feel like they should be, running out there. And all this is at this point is experimenting, given there's no playoff aspirations.
That lineup tonight is going to be one for the books. I'll tell you that. It's going to be – I cannot wait to see that.
I can't wait to see Vidal Brujan in the cleanup spot, baby. We're gonna have Nick Gordon in there too. Oh my god!
Leading off Kevin Burrell.
That's one name we haven't noted. Nick Gordon obviously could be seeing a majority of the time in left field if Wall does in fact take a lion's share of the time in center. Albeit, a lot of those guys can kind of just flip flop. Sanchez could possibly even cameo in center field if they let him, or I think they have more options now than they've had in a very long time.
Yeah, very interesting what happens. DLC getting traded to the Pittsburgh Pirates. Pittsburgh seems to be, I don't want to say going in, but with everything there to see how they do in getting that in a wild card spot. But let's go ahead and talk about one of the other bigger trades that happened maybe not too long ago, just right before Bryan De La Cruz, and that is Tanner Scott going to the San Diego Padres. It seems like if you want big players, big trades, it seems like the Marlins and the Padres are 1-1 when it comes to it. I believe this is the third trade they've done together within, I believe, the last year or so, with the David Weathers trade, the Garrett Cooper, Tanner Scott, and now let's see what happens. Kevin, I want to hear Tanner Scott going to the Padres. Arias got traded there earlier, so it seems like you can maybe count this as one big package deal. Then also Brian Hoeing going to San Diego. So why don't we wait to see what Carver says about that. But Tanner Scott going to the Padres for a plethora of prospects.
Yeah, dude, it's looking like the San Diego Marlins out there with the amount of former fish they got out there. But yeah, man, I mean, Tanner Scott's the best reliever in baseball. We had seen what the Phillies traded away for Carlos Estevez, the Angels closer. We thought Miami could get something similar, and they definitely did by getting Robbie Snelling, who I consider one of the better prospects in baseball. And then you have, I believe it's Adam Mazur, is how you say it. He was on the major league team, I believe. He'll probably get a starting job with the Marlins pretty quickly. And then they got a couple other position player prospects who are pretty solid. I believe they got their number 3 prospect, number 5 prospect in there, Pauly. And then one other guy. It's a good trade. They definitely went quantity over quality, but they got some pretty good quality out of it too with Snelling and Mazur, who are going to slip into the rotation pretty quickly. I think at least Mazur will, maybe Snelling in a year or two. It's a good trade for a rental reliever, and Brian Hoeing, who, you know, is a nice bullpen piece, has some control left, I believe. And he'll be a nice piece there for San Diego in their pen. Gives them a couple innings out of the bullpen. So good trade for the Marlins. Honestly, I thought they were going to get maybe 2 prospects at most with just Tanner. So maybe the fact that they put in Hoeing with the amount of control he has really beefed up that return. And they did themselves pretty well on this one as well. I mean, we were just talking about maybe a couple minutes before the trade went down how the Marlins really hadn't gone for any pitching. They'd only gone for position players. And in a matter of an hour, they've gone for 4 pitchers with that Chargois trade. So they're stacking the farm system up from every possible angle that they could find.
Right.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make an observation too, if I can. I wanted to make an observation. You know, I know Snelling hasn't necessarily been lights out at Double-A, but you know, should he get things together and you know he's in the big leagues in the next say 2 years, could you imagine like a starting 3 that of Sandy Alcantara if he's still there, then back and hopefully pitching at 100% Yuri Perez, and then you throw Roddy Snelling into that? That's a pretty formidable 3 spots in your rotation that you could potentially be running out there in a couple of years.
Well, yeah, I don't want to go on a tangent, but I do not like Sandy's chances of being on this team multiple years from now when he's due at the very end of his contract. Another quick glance at this, just to give you the names of the guys coming back in return. It's Bashirs, Adam Mazur, Graham Pauly, and Robbie Snelling. Those are the 4 coming back for Hoeing and Tanner. I would be curious to know how many of those correspond to Tanner and how many to Hoeing, because Hoeing has some value. The beauty of the Marlins position is that basically everybody in their bullpen had some value and some potential impact to contenders. You see it on this. They traded 1, 2, 3, 4. They've traded 4 relievers so far. With still 35 minutes to go in this. And that's exactly what they should have done right here. I see some comments about, the lack of upside of the guys they're getting, that maybe it's only 1 top 100 guy in this whole haul. And I think that's totally fair. I think you just need to be realistic about the trade chips that they had to begin with. Like, this is not, they had no star players to trade, even if, despite how some people view Jazz Chisholm Jr., major league teams do not view him that way. They did not have a single piece in here that should have brought back a slam dunk future star prospect, because Tanner Scott is the best player and Tanner Scott is a pending free agent and he's a reliever. There's only so much impact that he can have. He's going to pitch 20 innings the rest of the regular season for 20 innings of Tanner Scott and whatever Brian Hoeing turns out to be as a really good swingman for another couple years. They get one of their very best pitching prospects now in Robbie Snelling, even coming off the bad year he's had. They have somebody in Adam Mazur, but I'd be shocked if he pitches almost as well as Trevor does the rest of this year. Would be that shocked. I think it's a kind of a low bar to clear. Enough to compete for a spot pretty hard once more guys are healthy in 2025. But yeah, they got quite a bit of volume. I think the dream you'd like to get with Tanner Scott, especially package him with another player, the dream was to get a centerpiece that was a lot flashier. But the Padres only had two guys that really would have gotten people ultra excited. It was Ethan Salas, one of the best catching prospects in baseball, and their top international signing from earlier this year, whose name I always mispronounce, but DeVry, this 17-year-old Dominican outfielder who is – those guys are just untouchable, and they should be untouchable, even for Padres organization that is going for it. Their farm system is pretty bad, and they've traded between this and the Arise trade, some of the other trades, they've depleted it all. But those guys at the very, very top, those top two prospects, Leodalis DeVry and Ethan Salas, I think were understandably not realistic when you're just trading a rental reliever, even if he is the best rental reliever out there. So yeah, things are this is pretty exciting overall what they've done. Not done yet. Still not totally done yet. 33 minutes to go.
And they could still make moves. And we'll still see some stuff, coming in after the deadline too. So never say never.
Yeah. I want to hear from Zach. With all these trades happening, do you have, I don't want to say maybe a favorite, but maybe one that you look at maybe as that came to you that comes to mind that Marlins really did a great job on this trade so far, on the amount of trades they've done so far in the deadline?
Yeah, I think it has to be the Trevor Rogers one in terms of just looking around what baseball people are, how they're talking about this trade. I don't know if there's another trade that's been made at the deadline where so many people are in consensus about how stunning it is at the return. This is what Peter Bendix has been trying to do, has been heavy on position player talent in this farm system. And I couldn't believe that they got those two players. And then I just also think that it gets tough, especially when you have a return like that that's so flashy and you have big league hitting talent ready from that trade. It becomes hard to parlay flashy trades. So the Tanner Scott trade, while like Eli said, it may not have had that top prospect that everyone was kind of hoping that it would return. You bring in some pitching depth, which a lot of these trades for the Marlins, they hadn't been doing it all besides the Shagwa trade, which brought in one nice prospect. And his single A stats were actually really impressive, had some great strikeout numbers. But a guy like Adam Mazur in this trade that they got for Tanner Scott, even if it's just double A stats that we're looking at here, over a 6-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio, really impressive numbers. He has struggled in the big leagues, but this season, but adding that pitching depth, I think, really helps balance out what the Marlins are able to get return-wise at the deadline. They've addressed their need for position player talent, and not just talent down the road, but talent that I think we're even going to see later this season. So that would probably be my favorite trade. If I had to pick one out of all these, would be the Rogers one, just because it was such an unbelievable return. But I think getting that quantity back for Tanner Scott in that trade doesn't hurt either. They need more arms, and they certainly got a couple that can help this team in the not too distant future.
And touching on those arms, I mean, people want to complain that, some of them, or whoever, I forgot, the headliner hasn't seen much success in the big leagues. Same thing with Jesus Luzardo. Same thing with Ryan Weathers. If we trust one organization that's going to figure it out for these guys and help them along, I trust Mel, and I trust the Marlins pitching, all the pitching development guys. So I'm not too worried about that. They have all the tools. They're all very projectable. So I'm not too worried about it. The people that are concerned about that, I'd hold your horses.
Yeah, what's Snelling, he's just, I believe, 20 years old. So, he's getting his first taste of Double A now. You got to give him some time. He's going to an organization too that develops pitching very well. So, don't be worried. Robbie Snelling is a very, very good pitcher. I think he's probably one of the best ones they got out of this whole deadline at the moment. Probably the best one they've gotten. So, should be very, very excited. This is a guy who a lot of people in this business are very, very high on. It's You should be very excited about Robbie Snelling, and we'll see what they get out of Mazur. I don't even know how to say that one yet.
No, now we half an hour in. Let's head into our break. Let's relax. Let's charge our batteries. Let's process a little bit everything. We're gonna do a flip fish, and then when we get back, I want to hear some more thoughts on these trades. Some other trades we haven't talked. We haven't mentioned the Jazz one on Steam yet. See a little bit what we see from there. Some of those guys, and then I also want to ask you guys now, since most of these trades have happened, where the farm system ranks now. Where do you think the farm system is now to where it was before? But Eli, let's do a little flip fish.
Yeah, so you guys should know how we do this already, picking a player that played for both of these teams. And I made this a trade deadline edition, somebody that was traded at the deadline between these teams in the past. This one, it's a little easier than I originally planned because he was traded again today. Maybe that's a pretty big hint. This pitcher was traded again today. He's no longer with the Marlins or the Rays. He's with this different team. He's active, but he did pitch for them at points during his career. 4.5 career ERA, some starts, mostly in the bullpen. So think it over. 31-year-old who was, I reiterate, traded yet again today, as he was traded between these two teams back in the day at the deadline. So we'll go to our break. We'll come back on the other side. A whole lot more to go as we count down to the trade deadline. Stick with us.
We have been representing people injured as a result of other people's negligence for over 50 years here in South Florida. If you get injured as a result of somebody else's negligence, it can be a car accident, it can be a slip and fall, medical malpractice, negligent security. If somebody else's negligence caused an injury to either you or one of your loved ones, give us a call. Our phone number is on our page, our website is on our page, and our email addresses are on our page. Please, give us a call for a free consultation. We'd love to help you. Let Zach and I protect your rights.
Did you guys figure it out, or chat figured it out?
I think I got this one.
I got it.
I will go and say it's Trevor Richards.
It is the underwhelming career stats of Trevor Richards.
Yeah.
Former substitute teacher Trevor Richards, I believe.
Where did he get traded to, I believe?
Today he got traded from the
He
Blue
got traded
Jays.
to the Twins.
Twins, that's right. Oh, we have a little roster up from the Marlins.
A lot of them. Holy crap.
Jesus Tinoco claimed off the waivers from the Cubs. Braxton Garrett, 60 IL. Roger Munoz recalled from AAA. George Soriano recalled from AAA. And then David Helsley active now to the roster.
Yeah, I will.
Jesus Tinoco was the one who gave up the homer to Judge. Homer number 62, former Marlin. So not looking real good, but it's fine.
Let's do a little more on these trades. We mentioned Trevor Rogers. We mentioned Tanner. AJ Puck we've mentioned before. Let's go ahead and talk about this Jazz trade. This is, again, one of the biggest trades of the trade deadline, going to the biggest market as well, the biggest team in baseball, the New York Yankees there. Already hit 2 home runs, so doing pretty good so far with the Yankees. But this has been almost the face of the franchise, you could say, for maybe the past couple years on MLB The Show. When people see the Marlins, talk about the Marlins, number one player they will think of would be Jazz, along with Sandy. But I want to hear your guys' thoughts on this Jazz Chisholm trade. I want to hear from you, Nate. When Jazz got traded, your thoughts on him being traded, maybe again to the Yankees, a team that's needed that kind of a flexibility in those positions, and also who the Marlins got.
I was with Kevin and Carver. We were in Jupiter when I first heard about the trade, and I was hurt, to be honest. I mean, Jazz has been the face of the franchise. I mean, whether you like it or not, for the past couple of years, 3 or 4 years. Might not have always been the best player production wise, but when you think about the Marlins, like you said, you think of Jazz, you think of Sandy. So originally I didn't like the return, but as we saw more and more, I do like Ramirez. I don't think he's going to stick at catcher. I think he has more of a DH future. I mean, we saw his low lights back there catching. I don't think he's the best back there, but fringe top 100 guy. His bat's pretty solid. So but the guy I like most, honestly, is Cerna. He's a shortstop. He's 5'7", but he has a lot of pop in his bat. I believe he has north of 15 homers this year. And he's got some speed, and he's a very good shortstop. He could honestly stick it short, or honestly move to second or third. So I like that. I like that as well. And then I believe the last one, Abraham Ramirez, is the lottery ticket they took, and he, I believe, hit over 300 in the FCL this year. So a pretty solid return. And Jazz, like you said, for New York, first game he comes out with his hat backwards, much needed. Some add some electricity to that New York team. The Yankees aren't really known for their flashiness, but Jazz had 2 homers yesterday, so he's clearly fitting right in no matter what you do. If you do well in New York, they'll like you. So I touched on the spaces that it could go either one or two ways. He's going to either be really liked or really, depending on his play, could be disliked, but he's out to a hot start. I wish nothing but the best for Jazz in New York. 2 years older, I believe, for Jazz, so hopefully he can figure it out. And then, on the Marlins, I like Ramirez and I like Cerna, so I'd say it's pretty even. We just got to see if the Marlins hitting development can develop these guys into who they're supposed to be.
And Agustin Ramirez is making his debut today. He's hitting cleanup, and he's the DH for Jacksonville. So we'll see if that lineup changes. We don't know exactly who's. Apparently, there's a lot of players at a hotel in Tampa right now waiting to be recalled. So we'll see exactly who's there, who's not, and I would assume the lineup that's up currently for Jacksonville is the one, but we could see definitely a couple changes in the coming hour or two for sure.
Yeah, that shrimp lineup got a lot more exciting in the past week between De Los Santos and Ramirez. There's a lot more pop, a lot more fun. So I'm going to be definitely checking out those games more than I was before, for sure.
We have another one, I think. One more trade coming. This is wild. Oh boy!
Shoot it, Kevin.
Oh. No,
give it to us.
That's what Greg said. One,
oh
my God, more trades coming. This is wild.
Trade or trades?
Trades.
Trades.
With an S.
Wow.
Impending.
What's going on? Lots of stuff.
Who we thinking?
I'm thinking I'm running out of space on the graphic to include.
We got another one. I'm calling. Oh my God, who could it be?
Anyone but Esther Sanchez, take him.
No, it could be.
Burger? Do you think Burger can be traded?
I think Cronin's.
Andrew Chafin got 2 prospects from the Rangers.
Yeah.
The way Trevor Rogers with the LMG, I mean, I'm thinking Burger. Honestly, I don't know. We'll see.
It could be Burger. We need Krutchik on here.
Oh, that team would hit like 4 home runs.
Yeah, just
so
today alone, they have traded Trevor, Tanner, and Hoeing together. Chagua salary. I guess we should touch on Josh Bell. Traded at the deadline for the 3rd consecutive year. That's got to tie or set some kind of record. How many other major league players have been involved in trade deadline deals year after year after year with 1, 2, and I think 6 different teams over the course of it. He started 2022 with the Nats, then went to the Padres at the deadline. Started the next year with Cleveland, went to Miami at the deadline. Okay, so in Miami, it's only been 5 different teams in the last 3 years for Bell, actually. I was overstating it. But this is a salary dump, a partial salary dump, as it turns out.
Brazoban to the Mets.
Brazoban, interesting.
Wow.
Brazoban to the Mets, who we believe we're in on Tanner to some extent, even poking around on Trevor to some extent. And they end up getting Brazoban, who missed a chunk of this year due to his visa issues. When he's been healthy, his stuff has come all the way back to what it has been.
Williams?
He's fine, but he's like a middle reliever on this team, honestly. I think that speaks to how deep this bullpen was. But yeah, overall was pitching well this year, just not with inherited runners on. And over the past 3 years as a whole, he's just really difficult to hit. So he's an addition to them. I would not expect, because the years of control, that's a fascinating factor. He's still pre-ARB eligible, so that will help his value. I don't know if his value is, maybe it's a little bit higher than somebody like Brian Hoeing would be on his own. It certainly wouldn't be quite as high as Puck, I don't think. And so don't expect too much from the return right here. But I would expect maybe one prospect that's in the Marlins top 30 coming back.
Yeah. But, very interesting, with Go ahead.
What is it?
I think I was mentioning with Brazoban, just what they were able to get for him when he first came to the Marlins to now being able to trade him for some prospects and everything. Just maybe really shows the developmental side that they've been going through, and to be able to get a guy who was pitching, I believe, in indie ball not too long ago, to now being able to trade him for maybe it could be hopefully a top 30 prospect or so. But really great to see there in terms of that terms of trade. But I want to hear Nate to tell me what you think. I'm going to say the philosophy of Peter Bendix Just the amount of trades. Where do you think this leads to the Marlins? I believe, there's so many trades here on here. We could barely fit it on the screen, even with just so many guys there. Just where do you think maybe the headspace and maybe where do you think Peter's philosophy is with trading all these players and the future of the team?
Everyone is available. There's no one that's off limits. Everyone is available, and we've seen it now. I mean, even with Xavier Edwards and Jesus Sanchez being unlikely, but obviously, we hope not. But everyone's available. It's how the Rays have always done it, and that's what Bendix is going to continue to do. So we saw it with the Rise earlier too. So that was in May. That was a sign that if someone's available for the right price, the Marlins will take the deal. And moving forward, it's what it has to be. So Marlins fans are certainly, used to seeing their favorite players go, and I assume that's what's going to continue to happen. And as it relates to the farm, I mean, of course, he's got an incredible return on most of these guys. Just in the past week alone, De Los Santos, Cerna, Ramirez, Norby, I can't even go. I've lost track already. There's so many guys that he's added, and not even to mention Dylan Head and whoever they got in the draft. So Bendix has come in and got his guys. He's completely reloaded the farm. I mean, I'd say also, compared to how the Marlins used to do it, like back in the Jeter regime, even before that, a lot of that used to go on in the offseason. As Eli touched on in the spaces, now they've really gone to work at the deadline. So, like I said, there might be more coming, so we'll have to just wait and see. Always having conversations.
I don't think we're going to be able to talk about the Brewers series, right, Danny? Right?
I think maybe in a little bit. I mean, we'll just do a little bit now. We'll just mention Xavier Edwards' cycle. That's the really biggest thing to talk about. We can talk about for a little bit before we maybe get the details of Brazoban and a little more of the trades. We'll go back to date on this. This is your guy, Xavier Edwards, gets the second cycle in franchise history, just a year after Luis Arraez gets his cycle. They go back to back in terms of years of getting cycles, and before that, it took him 20 plus years to get the first one. Xavier Edwards did it. Last hit, almost second to last at bat of the game, gets his single. Talk to us about Xavier Edwards getting the cycle.
That game, he flashed every tool he had, from the little power he does have. He first pitched the game, ambushed it, took it over the fence, and then his last two at bats. That was the fastest he ran his entire career. I believe 29.9 miles an hour sprint speed, which is I believe a whole mile an hour faster than his previous high, just to get to first base and get that cycle. And even at that, it was Devin Williams' first appearance, I believe, of the season, and that's one of the best relievers in all of baseball. He has the airbender, and he worked a tough at bat, felt off a couple hard pitches, and then laid out that the single. So, I mean, I really can't say enough about Xavier Edwards since he's been called back up. He's absolutely starred, and I'm very happy for him, and he's going to have his chance. I mean, that was his first game without Jazz on the roster, and he hits for the cycle. So it's going to be all up to him this last, and I'm very excited with him and Norby potentially in the middle infield, just to preview what's to come. So hopefully he can keep killing it. He's going to face his former team this series, so maybe he has some extra motivation. So we'll see.
Yeah, for those it's
not Marlins.
If you saw big wide eyes come up a few seconds ago, those Eloy Jimenez to the Orioles, which I don't think there's a more overrated player in baseball. That's not really a trade that deserves this. Like Eloy's not been good this year. He's not been healthy this year. He's a pending free agent. He's not going to play every day over there, but that's an interesting one. I'll admit that's very interesting. I was not thinking the Orioles as a fit for Eloy, so we'll see how that goes. See somebody that's probably a free agent this offseason, looking far ahead, somebody that the Marlins maybe take a flyer on to have a bounce back year. So the Brazoban trade pending medical review, as we are 15 minutes to go until the deadline so far, and I'm still trying to wrap my mind around what this roster is supposed to look like tonight, because they've traded 5 relievers from their team over the last few days, including 4 today alone between Chagua and Tanner, Hoeing, and now Brazoban here.
The return for the Mets for the Marlins is Wilfredo Lara from the Mets, infielder.
Yeah, so let's see what I can find out about Wilfredo Lara. Not top of my head, he's not on Baseball America's top 30 for them. A 20-year-old Dominican utility guy, kind of. Played quite a bit of shortstop this year. He's at high A, like a league average hitter at high A right now, who did really well in the Florida State League last year. So that's kind of notable. It's hard to hit down in low A, Florida State League last year. But it seems like something. You think that's a whole return? That'd be a little underwhelming. It was only
29 on FanGraphs.
Yeah. So only a fringy top 30 prospect guy.
I mean, for Brazo, it's.
And as it relates to this series, reports coming out that Yanni Diaz is unlikely to be traded. So,
yeah. So I was gonna, I guess I could get to it now. We're still waiting to see all the dust settle on this. The last time these teams played was less than 2 months ago. And these are the lineups that they used right here. Let's see what the differences are. Yandy is still there, but the Rays have traded Arozarena, Paredes, Rosario. They cut Harold, and he signed elsewhere, Harold Ramirez. They traded Zach Eflin, so half of that lineup is gone from just 2 months ago. For the Marlins, they traded Jazz. They traded the top 3 hitters. They cut Tim Anderson, and Braxton Garrett is hurt. He's still on the team, but he's just got transferred to the 60-day IL. We might not see him until September. So basically, half of these lineups from less than 2 months ago, these guys are no longer on the team, and on either of these teams. And again, still not quite done yet, but I think it's safe to say the rest of these Marlins position players, they are not being moved at this deadline. And from the Rays, the really question remaining was Yandy Diaz. Unlikely as of this hour that Yandy Diaz, as of this minute, we should say, that he's going to be moved. But still a little bit of time to change people's minds. Both these teams really following the same blueprint, the same script right here, which is weird because the Rays were right around 500 when this happens. You would think within striking distance of doing something interesting, if they just held on to as much major league depth as possible, that'd be unusual. It's something that the Marlins themselves don't really have experience doing, but having a team that's average-ish and yet being unafraid to blow it up if you get the right prices for it.
Shout out to everyone who's watching, by the way. We have over 4,000 views, I believe, on this, almost all coming from Twitter. So I guess this stream's doing pretty good numbers.
Kevin, obviously trade deadline's not over. We don't know the exact way that all the players that the Marlins are getting, but what you're seeing now compared to maybe what they were in the beginning of the season, the farm system, where do you see it now? How does this fare overall, maybe in the MLB? Perfect. Well, I'll get to you, Kevin, after this. Let's get Alex Krutzik, who is at Tropicana Field, who was at the game covering for us. Alex, how many hugs have you seen so far today?
Well, remember, guys, Paul Campbell is not a major leaguer, so there wasn't much action in that regard here. As for the other stuff, no, there was a lot of hugs. Deadline day is one of the more human days of covering baseball. Like being in the clubhouse any day, you realize that these guys are just people like you and me. But especially on days like today, like Josh Bell got traded earlier today. All these days are mashing together. He got traded earlier today, and it's been well documented that him and Jake Berger are best of friends on this team. Lots of people were coming up to Jake Berger and giving him hugs, almost like they were giving him condolences. After Bryan De La Cruz was pulled off the field, there were guys giving Jesus Sanchez hugs. There's guys here that are, I know it sounds dramatic when you're just talking about trades, in the grand scheme of things, but there's guys that are actually hurting. Their feelings are hurt a little bit here. It is a shame, just from a human being perspective, that we do deadlines on game days, because you've got Bryan De La Cruz shagging fly balls, trying to game plan for a team that he doesn't even know if he's actually playing against, game planning for a team that he may not be playing with tonight. And then he gets pulled in front of everyone and is told an hour before game time, hey, you don't play here anymore. So it's kind of sad in that regard, but I actually asked Skip, what is the usual reaction for guys that are going to a buyer, going to contenders? And the answer is that, well, his answer was that on behalf of him, he's happy for these guys that they get to compete and that they get to go to a team that's actually contending this year, because he acknowledged, obviously the Marlins are not in that position this year. So he's happy for all those guys to get to go to Pittsburgh and Arizona. As much as it sucks to see DLC go, he's going to a really exciting situation. So you try to find the positives in this.
We were talking about this right before you came on, that the Rays have kind of done something similar. They've gutted their roster, even though they're a 500-ish team. Just imagine trying to put yourself in the shoes of the Rays, why they would be so bold in order to do that, even in a season where they were kind of still technically alive for a wild card spot?
God, I don't know. I'm not entirely privy to this year's payroll or the payroll going forward, but just knowing what we know about the Rays, like they're not the kind of team that offers extensions to a whole lot of guys, and that might be it. It might be more of of just a sell-off as opposed to a fire sale where they feel like they're not going anywhere. It might just be getting rid of guys before they even get the chance. Like, didn't the Marlins do something similar in 2005, where the Marlins were still kind of in it, and then they started selling off all these pieces?
Just the updated look at what we're looking at with Wilfredo Lara added to one side of the ledger and Brazoban on the other. I could maybe squeeze in one more. Yeah, so if you can do the math over this last week, 9 guys going away from the Marlins. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 prospects for the most part, and some rookie eligible guys and cash. Don't forget about the cash. $2.25 million in savings on Bell. And I guess they saved money on Tanner Scott's salary and what was left of Jazz and Trevor and Puck and all that stuff. So, yeah, there's the updated look at things right now. So, Krutchik, I guess there's another wave of roster moves coming because you shared some, but now just in the last half hour, we have Brazoban going and De La Cruz going. It's great. Maybe but you said there are like guys on standby near the team just in case they need to be added onto the roster.
Yeah, Skip said they prepared for this. He said, luckily, we're playing a road game that's still pretty close to home. I do know what I can confirm is that George Soriano and Rodri Munoz were called up and activated, along with that new acquisition whose name escapes me right now.
David Hensley.
No, yeah.
David Hensley. Yes, David Hensley. Sorry, my brain's all over the place. Oh, by the way, Garrett Crochet will not be traded. Just thought I would throw that out there.
I wonder why.
I just got that notification.
I wonder why.
Kevin's itching at the vents.
Look, we'll get to that later, Kevin. We'll get your opinions on it later. I know you got some. But, oh, yes. So Skip even said he still doesn't know exactly who's coming up. He doesn't know who's going to be called up in their current batch of prospects. He doesn't know who's going to be called up from the batch of prospects that are being traded here. He knows that some of them will have to come up, of course. He doesn't know which ones those will be, which is fair. There's sometimes where a manager will hide his cards. I wouldn't be surprised if he's being genuine when he says he doesn't know exactly what he's going to do yet. Like Tanner himself just got traded 5 minutes before Skip came to talk to us. And then since we stopped talking to Skip, they've now traded 2 more players away. So guys will get called up. Some of the guys that got traded over here will be in the majors. We just don't know which ones yet.
Do you happen to know who is there but isn't activated yet? Who's currently at the local Holiday Inn?
So, what, you say it one more time?
Who's currently at the local Holiday Inn that you know
Wow.
of that may get activated?
I don't know.
The Dodgers.
I got to be honest, in the clubhouse, I didn't see any minor league guys or taxi squad guys. It was a handful of major leaguers. I haven't seen any of the minor league guys, but I know that they're here. They're somewhere around here, just gallivanting around St. Pete, maybe. Lots to do here. But but they're here. I don't know exactly who it is, but I know that they're prepared. They saw this coming. It's not like Peter Bendix kept Skip in the dark. Everyone knew that lots of guys were going. We just didn't know exactly which ones, but they're prepared for this.
Wow. Okay, that's some nice trades. Dodgers made a lot of moves within the last, I would say, 20 seconds. Flaherty of the Dodgers, and then they also acquired Kevin Kiermaier. So
wow,
Kevin Kiermaier doing his little retirement tour maybe ended with a ring with the Dodgers. So I'll be very interesting there. Dodgers was always going all in. Jack Flaherty was also traded last deadline to the Orioles. Did not have a great half with the Baltimore Orioles. Kind of maybe maybe what happens there between Trevor Rogers and the Orioles. See what it's the same like Jack Flaherty. As we're 4 minutes away from the official trade deadline at 6 o'clock. But do remember, trades do trickle in at the very last minute. After 6 o'clock, trades do trickle in. So we will see what happens. We'll be here on still live, maybe next 10 minutes after or so after that 6 o'clock deadline to really go through it and then review it and give our prediction for a series. Maybe one of us here will be playing very soon. But Kevin, as we're doing this, I asked you earlier, where does this farm system stack up now to where it was opening day?
God, it looks day and night a lot better. I mean, you add De Los Santos, Ramirez, Norby to that system. You added 3 new type of bats that you just didn't have in this organization. You still stack up on pitching. You bring in Snelling. I believe Mazur is still a prospect eligible, I want to say. Bring in this guy from Seattle, which is an undrafted guy. I mean, it looks a lot different, and it'll continue to look different, a year from today. They will have a new draft pick. They will have international signings already done. They're bringing in 2 really good players. So right now, I'm pretty sure Kylie McDaniel said it was like a 16th best, maybe 15th best system in baseball. Maybe a little higher now. I still wouldn't say top 10 or even top 5, but I mean, it's looking a lot better. And, obviously some guys are going to graduate pretty soon with Norby. If he comes right up to the major leagues, he'll graduate fairly quickly. Same goes to someone like a De Los Santos or Ramirez if they come up soon. So, it's still to be seen how much different it'll look like in a good way, because at the end of the day, these guys are almost all major league ready. It's just a matter of putting them in games, seeing what they've got. So they're probably going to do that this season, honestly, and we'll just see how it'll go.
By the way, I know that complimenting Peter Bendix is not very in right now, but I will say, to do all this, I kind of envisioned over the last couple of years, if they're going to revamp the hitting side of this minor league system, they're going to have to get rid of one of their premier pitchers, and to get away with only trading Trevor Rogers, I think that's pretty impressive so far. Luzardo, Yuri, and Sandy are all safe. The fact that you can keep those 3 guys and still revamp what you got down there, that's incredible.
Oh, Krutchik, you misspoke, bro. They just traded Yuri and Sandy, dude. Come on.
Wait, say that one more time?
Oh, never mind. The joke now flew away. Never mind.
Yeah. I think you were queuing up this clip.
Hey, nice work, Mr. Peter Bendix.
Yeah, you got to give him credit where credit is due. Peter has maybe won the trade deadline in the seller's market. It's between, funny enough, the 2 teams are playing today, Miami and Tampa. They couldn't have done any better than they did today. And who knows? It looks like Craig really seems pretty adamant that they're not done. So we'll see what happens. And look at that. The Padres just got Martin Perez. So a little bit of selling from the Pirates as well.
Yeah. Ooh, Trey Sweeney got traded. Okay. Zach, overall, all these trades that we're seeing, multiple players, 15 plus, including Cash, close to double-digit players traded away from the Marlins. How would you overall recap this trade? I wouldn't even say deadline. This trade week has been for the Marlins.
Well, there's so many names on the right side of that graphic. It looks like a full paragraph. But just looking at the position players and guys like Stowers, Norby, and Davison De Los Santos, that just changes, I think, a lot about how the hitting prospects in this farm system are viewed and how that's been a point of focus throughout this entire season and since Peter Bendix has come in. So I think those 3 names are the ones that stick out to me, but even a guy like Agustin Ramirez from the Yankees is probably as good as they were going to do, even though I think a lot of people thought that the Marlins may have been able to get more for Jazz, but I think they actually made out with a great return for Jazz and getting Ramirez in addition to the rest of that package. So I think you got to be really happy and excited about the future of Marlins baseball and the youth in the hitting that this team just a couple of days ago didn't have. And here we are, and we're refreshing our feeds by the minute to see if anything comes in the next.
There's one more. We
don't even want to speak too soon. If it's 6:01, I gotta just keep my mouth shut and see what Twitter says about
Yeah.
Craig put up the Vince Carter.
He used the Vince Carter
Carter
graphic. There is one more.
Yeah.
And also Flip Fish
Ooh.
legend Sean Armstrong going to St. Louis in exchange for Dylan Carlson. So
Wow,
It's
the
good
Rays making moves. That's actually a nice move there for someone like Sean Armstrong. Wow, that's very interesting. In terms of that, maybe Crutcher can get a little hugs for Sean Armstrong and see what happens there. But very interesting. And the Rays making moves as well with Dylan Carlson. I kind of like that as well. That should be a fun one there. As we're looking at more ones, more trades coming in. Jeff Passan.
I don't compliment
a lot of
the entire day has been fairly entertaining from when they made the whole Trevor Rogers deal, then Bell. It's been pretty consistent. So I applaud Peter Bendix on spreading these out, making the entire day pretty entertaining.
I will tell you, this hour has flown by. This has been the fastest hour. I think we're all just kept up refreshing all our feed and make sure that, does this person get traded? Who are we getting? Who are we not getting? Is this player going there? And also maybe keeping track of the rest of the league to see what they're doing. Eli, if this is it, if that is the trade as of right now, I don't want to say give a grade, but how would you look at Peter Bendix's first trade deadline with the Marlins?
I think given what he had to work with, it was pretty excellent, all things considered. He just did not necessarily have that one guy to totally control the deadline, but struck in so many different places. It's a pretty big bet, specifically because of the players traded away, with so many of them being relievers. It's a bet on the Marlins being able to create good relievers out of nothingness. And maybe that sounds like a bold idea, but they've kind of been doing it for these last couple of years. They did it with Huascar Brazoban, as you mentioned before. 2 years ago, he wasn't even in the big leagues. And a year before that, he wasn't even in like affiliated professional baseball. And now he is somebody that gets something back in return to turn. So I guess we'll see what this last trade is. I'm going to make a wild guess that it's Declan Cronin. If, for example, they trade him, like that would be a great example of doing so, going from a waiver claim into something that brings a lot. Does anybody else want to have a last minute prediction as to who's involved?
Is that our prediction time? Is that our prediction time to see the last player getting traded?
Prediction time for the series, but really quick, Zach,
Quickly,
give me a
Kevin.
guess. Who's the player that got traded?
Who's the last player that gets traded?
Nardi, if I had to guess.
Nate.
Craig talked about Cronin months ago. I thought it was going to be Nardi, but I'm going to roll with Cronin as well.
So I'm Cronin. Also Kevin. Who is it?
I'm going to go a little different from what Zach said. I'll go with Fauché.
Okay. Daniel.
I was going to go Fauché, but the way Declan Cronin's been playing, I'm going to go with Cronin. I think it's going to be Declan Cronin, the last player to be traded to the let's go the Dodgers. I think the Dodgers aren't done yet.
No Jake Berger bets? Interesting.
That's a good one. That's like 3 points.
Dude, imagine it's like Berger or something.
Oh my goodness. Berger to Arizona, he'd be the happiest man on planet Earth. But they do not need him, so.
Right. So I also wanted to circle back to what you asked, Daniel, about where the farm system is at right here.
Mm-hmm.
The closest thing that we have to like a real life sort of empirical grade is what Fangraphs does on their board. And I think this is updated with several of the trades today, although not all of them, but several of them at the moment right here. And I'll show you. They have the Marlins at 17th in farm system strength from an organization that entered the year at number 28. They are now up to 17th overall based on the moves that they've made. Again, not fully updated. So this is kind of a low end estimate using their formulas. It might be even a little bit better than that at the moment, but they have them up to 17th. Oh, it's not perfectly in order because it actually has them, it says 17, but it has the value tied with the Braves. So they're kind of tied with the Braves for 16th right there, right behind the Phillies, Rockies, D-backs right ahead, the Brewers, Cardinals, and Pirates right behind. That's still not where you want to be. And I don't think even the top draft pick coming in next year and top international signing, the complication is that so many of these prospects are close to being big league ready. Some of these guys are going to graduate from prospect eligibility by the end of this season. More of them are going to graduate in the early portion of next season. So that's why I keep going back to is this interesting strategy to lean more towards guys that are almost ready for the big leagues instead of ones that are really deep down. Even the one they just picked up for Brazoban, he's a high A utility player. If things go well for him, he can be up in the big leagues within the next 2 years. Not a whole lot of guys picked off of of rookie level or the complex. Really, one of the only ones is the headliner of the De La Cruz deal in Shim, the right-hander, who I'll have to learn how to pronounce his name relatively soon. But he's the one that is probably the farthest away lottery ticket. There aren't a lot of lottery tickets here. And he went kind of safer than I expected in terms of players that are high probability contributors, but don't necessarily have the highest ceilings. Like there is not just among these trade deadline deals, like I don't think there's a likely everyday shortstop in here. And there's probably not an everyday catcher either, depending on how Agustin Ramirez handles it defensively, but we're all a little skeptical about him being a full-time catcher. So that, surprised me a little bit. Then again, there are just limitations that he was facing. Going back to the players that are being traded, like these just simply are not super duper stars that they had available to give away among the guys that were healthy. So the value that this team got in return, I think, is excellent. There's still work to go. And for people that are a little too overexcited about how quickly this could turn the corner, I have a feeling that there are more of these type of trades to come once these starting pitchers get healthy. If whether it's Sandy or Luzardo, if either of those guys reprise the form that they had not too long ago, those are the kind of deals that would bring back even more in return. It's going to be really tempting to flip those guys for players that are much further away from free agency. So that's my assessment of it. So there's still some of these more trades to come. There's still going to be a lot of losing at the major league level the rest of this year. And as things currently stand, probably a lot of next year. The bright side is that you get to see a lot of new faces at the big league level during that losing.
In an interesting contrast, the Rockies, who are I believe tied for the Marlins in first place odds for next year's draft, they didn't make any moves. They kept Quantrill, Gomber, Brendan Rodgers, and Elias Diaz. So it's very interesting. They held on to all their guys. The Marlins are cleaning house. So just Bendix doing Bendix things, I guess.
Yeah, very interesting to see there. Marlins really try to get that first pick, maybe bring in another holiday into the pro baseball. But Kevin, where does this leave the active roster now? Who are we going to see within the next month or so, the next couple of weeks? Who could we potentially see?
That's on the 40-man, you mean?
Yeah, they could potentially come up, active roster, maybe new guys going into the 40-man.
I mean, I guess Carter Norby is going to be the main guy you have to check out there. Kyle Stowers, who's coming in the trade. They still have a couple more open 40-man spots. I can't tell you right off the rip who it would be, but I think those are the two guys we're really looking at. Maybe the Ed De Los Santos, I guess. I mean, I don't have the 40-man in front of my face right now, but definitely those are the guys to keep an eye out on.
I just want to I would say take a look around the league once the dust settles and see all the guys that just got DFA'd by their teams. Those are your guys that get plugged into the 40-man roster. They're not going to start the clock on any of these prospects unless they absolutely have to. That's kind of one of the downsides of being in this situation. I think Connor Norby is going to be an exception. Norby, he's going to get plugged in, playing the majors. He's been already 2 years straight in AAA, nothing left to prove. They just opened up look at all these guys that are just leaving the 40-man roster right now. And a lot of the guys they acquired, even if most of them are close to the big leagues, only a few of them are going straight on the 40-man. It's Augustin.
Sorry to interrupt, Eli. Mitch just texted the Marlins are done. It is that is it for the that will be it. So no points for any of us.
Ooh. So that is it. Okay. Hold on just a moment.
They kept a lot of guys. In terms of the bullpen, I thought they would trade a little more than, I thought Cronin and Fauché were definitely gone, as well as potentially Nardi, but they kept a really good bullpen. It's been one of the best in baseball. So, yeah, it should be an interesting second half of the season, and we'll finally get a lineup, see what Skip cooks up with the lineup.
Okay. They are done. Marlins are done.
Let's just make this a full screen so that everybody can see this. The dust has settled. This is your full trade deadline summary for the Marlins right here. That is 9 players going out, 15 coming in. So 24 players changing hands in the span of the last 4 days, dating back to the puck deal.
Lots of trades, lots of new names, lots of new faces to get used to. We can end this now. Do a little bit of a prediction time, but I want to get out of everyone's final thoughts on this trade, almost trade deadline, trade week, whatever it is for the Marlins. Nate, overall review of these trade summary.
I'll give it an A-. I'm very high on this. I believe they got rid of their best assets, got fairly good returns on most of them. My favorite guys are De Los Santos, Norby, and probably I'm already getting the pitchers mixed up from San Diego, but one of them is a very high ceiling. And honestly, I could say that about all those guys. All guys have a really high ceiling. I'm very pleased with Bendix's first deadline, so I'll give it a very, very solid A-. I think he did very well.
Zach?
It's an A for me. I think the Trevor Rogers and AJ Puck trades vastly exceeded my expectations in terms of what we thought the return was going to look like in terms of bulking up this farm system. So I think those two are the ones that stick out to me, and getting the talent that you did from a pitching standpoint in the Tanner Scott trade, I think was also a great job there by Bendix as well. So I'll give it an A.
Kev?
Yeah, I'm kind of with Zach and Nate on this one. Definitely an A for the Marlins. They addressed the needs that they needed to, especially in the minor league system, bringing in breakout potential guys with offense. You get De Los Santos and Ramirez from the Yankees and Diamondbacks, top 2 sluggers right now, power hitters in this entire organization now. Just your 2 minor league home run leaders as well. It's great. And then you settle on the pitching side, you bring in a pitcher that in Mazur who's going to slip in right into your starting rotation at the major league level. Snelling, I really like. I mean, they did very, very well, I think, on every single trade. Brazoban one was a little bit underwhelming, but it makes sense. He hasn't pitched too much, and he kind of came in pretty late the last 2 seasons. So, yeah, I mean, a little underwhelming on that one. But aside from that, Peter Bendix proudly won the seller's market at the trade deadline this season. I think that's the easiest way to say it. So definitely an A for the Marlins.
Eli?
B+. Be a hater, relatively speaking. Yeah, just to quibble about minor things. With Josh Bell, I don't understand that at all, why they let the D-backs throw in a couple $1 million in cash. That could get you like a lottery ticket prospect. These prospects are that if you assign a value number to some of these prospects in like the 30 to 50 range in an organization, you'd get to around 2.25 million. I don't understand that, and also just in general why they didn't need any of the salaries on any of the players going out except for Bell. They ate it down with Bell just enough to get him off their hands, but not anybody else. So for a team like this, where if you're going to be losing and you have Peter Bendix says himself that he has all the resources he needs from Bruce, and Bruce is going to do everything possible to get us turned around as quickly as possible. One way to turn around is by just spending money on players who you already budgeted to spend money on. So that is kind of my main quibble there, because between all these players, it's like $10 million in salary that they saved. And if you make more of a effort to make it more of a priority to eat that money, then you just get better prospects in return. So that's what they did in the Arise trade. And yet not really for anybody else did they do that. But I already spoke about the players involved. It's so much depth added to this organization, but not just depth, just the top end as well. Just on a very loose approximation right now, we're going to be doing this re-ranking in just a few days, official first. But I think like 8 of the top 13 prospects in the organization just arrived in these last few days. Off the top of my head, I think so. It really made a significant difference, expedited the process that they're going after. And it's a nice combination of buying low on some guys that have immense potential and also betting on guys that have turned a corner recently that made like really specific adjustments to their game that they're going to continue to build off of the recent success that they had. Yeah, so really well done. And so in the meantime, a whole lot of losing baseball at the minor league level, major league level, but a lot of new faces to debut in the minor leagues these next few days. So excited to follow their progress.
Yeah. I'll give it an A- to go a little bit there. I believe the trade were definitely the Trevor Rogers one. I think was the trade of the deadline for the Marlins, getting those types of players that can come in, play right away, and really still have that prospect pedigree. for the Marlins, for the future as well. I really love the AJ Puck trade. Getting De Los Santos there, someone with that home run power could be really great. I think maybe the minus comes from Brazoban, but I didn't think the Marlins were going to get too much for him, and maybe the Chisholm one a bit underwhelming with Ramirez, but overall just a very good trade as well. I would go in A- overall for Peter Bendix's first deadline as the Marlins GM.
So I don't want to throw Jonah Bride under the bus. I just want to use this as an example. There are going to be a lot of players taking the field for the Marlins over the last 2 months that are not necessarily there on their merits. They're there because they have to be. They're there because of all the talent that is just traded away. It's you hope these guys take advantage of their opportunities the rest of the way. Just as an example, there are guys on the field that they're just playing out the string at this point. That is the trade-off you get when you have an exciting deadline like this. Even if you get good value, the value of the baseball coming back. It's ironic that just now the carriage dispute between Comcast and Bally Sports finally got resolved. So some people that haven't been able to watch the Marlins on TV the last few months are getting it back starting on Thursday, and they get to watch a much different team than the one they remember seeing earlier this season.
Wow, very interesting there. We still have a game to play, a series. Eli, let's go ahead into prediction time on this series and spend at least any time on it. But again, we don't even know the players that are going to be on either team's lineups. So this will be very interesting to see who will go for series MVP. But Eli, let's get that music.
This is prediction time.
I don't want to toot my own horn here, but I'm really good at this.
All right. So prediction time leaderboard right here. Daniel's still on top. This is the most recent one. Yeah. So Chad Turner, watch out, Chad Turner. He has been surging recently. He's had 2 straight sets of perfect picks to climb into the top 10 and jump over me. Wow. But Daniel's still clinging to the lead right there by 1 point. It's a 2-game series between players employed by the Miami Marlins and Tampa Bay Rays. They have
who do you even choose for series MVP?
So let me just look at what was I previously thinking for my prediction. Okay, so the guy that I picked is still here ahead of time. For anybody, if you had somebody in mind that got traded today, it was mostly relievers. Come on, it doesn't really change all that much, but people have plans on here for their predictions right here. But so let me get the backgrounds queued up. Let me see if Alex Krutchik wants to join us. We'll stall for just a couple minutes to see if Alex Krutchik wants to come back here. We encourage people all season long, and especially down the stretch, become a super sub. If you do appreciate the coverage we provided, this is essentially a gift you could give to us for as little as $4 a month, but it also unlocks special perks such as participating in prediction time all season long, where we have a prize at the end of the season, a teal Florida Marlins starter jacket to whoever finishes in first on this leaderboard. Fishonfirst.com/subscriptions. Sign up if you haven't already to keep it going. Is there anything in the comments that you want to touch on? Yeah, as a reminder, the Marlins in the Dylan Head trade, that was a pretty nice get. Luis Rise deal. Between that and the most recent one, so many ex-Padres in this organization and ones that have pretty high potential. Yeah, we have Krutchik bouncing in just in time, so we can answer this. So let me get the music queued up. You guys know how this works. How many games the Marlins will win? Only a 2-game series, just 2 games. So a series split or one of these teams winning 2. Who will be the series MVP? The player must not have been traded today to be eligible for series MVP.
All right. Leading us off as always, Mr. Kevin.
So I'm going to go with the simple split. And I was going to choose Brian Hoeing to be my series MVP, but I'm going to have to pivot now. And I'm going to go with Xavier Edwards to get the MVP. Probably the safest pick out of all the position players.
All right, Zach.
Kevin stole my pick. No, I'm kidding. The X-Man's red hot. He's going to take series MVP. Banana split in this series. I feel like, sure, it's a little more safe, but hey, we don't know what the lineup's going to look like. I'll go with
Nate.
Marlins have been absolutely abysmal against the Rays in recent history, but for some reason I'm feeling a split. And I looked at everyone else tagged along on the X-Man himself, Xavier Edwards, against the team that he was with for a little bit. He's going to win the series MVP back in the Trop. He's the man, Xavier Edwards.
I'm going to go ahead with everyone. I think the Rays sweep the Marlins. The Marlins do not play well against the Rays, especially in Tampa. You're going to see some trouble maybe with some Edward Cabrera today, maybe who the Marlins trot out there. But my MVP, I'm going to go ahead and go with Taj Bradley. I think Taj Bradley is going to have a fantastic start against the Marlins and have a MVP moment. Eli.
A series split between these two teams, 1-1. The Rays have dominated this Citrus series going back the last handful of years. The Marlins upset them in order to simply get one apiece in this 2-game set. We'll go with Taj Bradley as my series MVP. He has been the MVP of my fantasy team this year, especially of late. So he's starting the second game of this series. I think he's going to continue to be really one of the best pitchers in baseball over an extended stretch.
Coming from us live from the Trop, Mr. Alex Crutcher.
I'm going to go with Rays, take both games. I'm going to say my MVP is the guy returning, Jeffrey Springs.
Ooh, I like that. Jeffrey Springs returning, starting tonight's game to see what happens there. But that's going to do it. An hour and 20 in. It is almost 6:30. Still no lineup. So let's see what happens there. Very interesting. That'll be the next big thing to really discuss on Twitter and to see really what happens there. Maybe who skip trots out there. But that's going to do it for us for trade deadline. Live reactions, live countdown, everything. Tanner Scott traded. Brian Hoeing traded. Josh Bell, Trevor Rogers, on and on and on. DLC, Huascar Brazoban. Lots of guys traded. Lots of new faces to the Marlins. We'll have all the coverage on these new faces. New top 30 as well coming out from us. Be on the lookout for that. Be on the lookout for everything coming out more. Remember to be a super subscriber. That's going to do it for myself, Daniel, Kevin, Eli, Nate, Zach, Alex, Lewis, who joined us earlier. This is FOF Live presented by Burger and Hicks. Go Fish.